So it's been about 4 days since the Pokemon Scarlet and Violet DLC with Part 1 the Teal Mask having come out, and I pretty much just finished beating it last night, and this is going to be my review slash impressions video where I'm going to give you guys my thoughts for anybody who wants to just hear how I feel about it, as well as for people who may be on the fence about buying this DLC and are wondering if it's worth it. And of course, it is worth mentioning this is just my opinion and how I personally feel about this, but also that this DLC is just a part 1 in a dual pack that you get when you buy the DLC, so you're not allowed to just buy like the first pack or just only the second pack. You have to buy both packs together, and so because of that, this is only technically like 50% of the DLC that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are offering, so we do have an entire other half that is left to come out later. This DLC also goes for a pretty big sum of $35 on the Nintendo eShop, so that's a little bit more than the Pokemon Sword and Shield DLC that came out, which was $30, and yeah, it's a little more than half the game, which costs at $60. So how good was this DLC, and did I enjoy it? So the first thing is you arrive in a brand new area known as the Land of Kitakami, and this is an area that is separate from the main Paldean region itself. It's not connected to it in any way. You actually have to go through different pages to go to different maps, and you have a separate one here for the Land of Kitakami. And it was honestly really surprising because the whole premise is like you're taking a school trip from Paldea to go and visit this new area. And upon arriving here, I was actually really surprised at how big this area actually was. So just like the base game, this entire area is open world and you're free to explore it at your own leisure, and there's even some verticality to this area as well, where you can actually climb some of the mountains and find different caves and different dens and stuff, and it was honestly very surprising because there is a lot of different places that you can explore here. There's different biomes. You can even find these little tunnels that hide TMs and stuff, and honestly I would say that if you actually spent your time here going through all of the different areas, catching all of the brand new Pokemon that appear, because there's over 100 new Pokemon or returning Pokemon from past regions that didn't appear in the base game here. So if you spend your time catching all of those Pokemon, if you spend your time getting all the new items and the TMs and exploring all the areas, you could honestly get a good 8 to 10 hours just kind of doing that, which is honestly pretty impressive. And so just comparing this to the first DLC for Pokemon Sword and Shield with the Isle of Armor, that map was definitely much smaller than how you're getting the map for this, and I would say that the Land of Kitakami is probably double the size of the Isle of Armor, so it was honestly very nice. Now, in terms of the story and the premise of this DLC, basically the Land of Kitakami has this village, and they worship these 3 Pokemon known as the Loyal 3, which are said to be the guardians of this entire village, protecting them from the mean ogre Pokemon that lives inside of the mountains. And that is pretty much kind of the tale that the entire villagers have believed for generations, and you kind of have a little mission in terms of your school trip where you go around and explore, learning about kind of the tale that the villagers believe. But in terms of doing all of this, on your adventure, you actually come across the original story and the truth of exactly what happened between all of this as well, and you get to learn about that and kind of help everybody make that change as well, because you help them understand the actual truth of what happened during the entire stuff with the Loyal 3 Pokemon and the Ogre Pokemon. And it was honestly a pretty cute story, and I definitely enjoyed it. It wasn't anything super long or anything crazy. I would say if you just do the entire story, you could probably get through the entire story quest and everything in terms of 3 or so hours. So it wasn't anything really long, but I actually did enjoy the story. It wasn't anything to write home about or anything that made me start crying or anything, but it was honestly a cute little story, and honestly I wasn't expecting it to kind of go the direction that it did, and it was pretty nice, so I did in fact enjoy it. It was cool because there was actually a little bit of lore here with the Loyal 3 Pokemon, the masks, the Ogre Pokemon and everything, and uncovering the entire truth of everything and explaining it to the villagers at the end was pretty nice, and it was honestly really interesting because this DLC is also going to be a continuation to the second part, where these DLCs are actually connected instead of the Isle of Armor and the Crown Tundra for Sword and Shield, which were just 2 separate things. This is actually going to be a continuation because once you get to the final part of the main adventure inside of the Teal Mask, you're actually going to be greeted to a screen that says to be continued, because the rest of the story is going to continue when the second part comes out with the Indigo Disc. So that's honestly really cool because the characters that you meet inside of the Teal Mask are from the Blueberry Academy, which you get to go to inside of the Indigo Disc. So it's honestly really cool because at the end here, you have characters like Carmine, who's one of the new characters that you meet, who's saying that, this isn't the time that we're going to be saying goodbye to each other. We're definitely going to see each other again soon, and that's going to happen because you do get to go and meet her in the next DLC. So it was honestly really cool because I'm glad that these DLCs are connected, and I can't wait to see how exactly everything unfolds in the next one. The music inside of this DLC was also pretty good too. There's some new battle themes against Kieran and Carmine, as well as when you battle against the Loyal 3 and Ogrepon, and there's some new area themes too when you're just exploring the land of Kitakami, so they were some pretty nice themes. There weren't any that I like disliked, but there wasn't also any that I was like, wow, this is one of the best Pokemon themes I've ever heard, but there are definitely some pretty good music. Really the only issue that I had with this DLC that I didn't like at all was of course the performance and graphics issues. So graphics wise, it isn't really that different from base game Scarlet and Violet. Like the trees, the grass, the rocks and everything look pretty much exactly the same. There are some new types of areas too, like there's a new pond area that they had, as well as like some new kind of like rice grass growing areas, which was pretty nice too. But overall, just the entire like look of the DLC is very similar to how it looks inside of the base game, which I honestly didn't mind all that much, so it wasn't really that big of a deal. The biggest issue by far in this DLC though is the performance issues that comes with the frame rate, and for some reason it honestly felt like it was even worse than the base game for me, which I don't know how they managed to do that. But yeah, there's definitely performance issues inside of this DLC. There's gonna be so many parts where you're just riding on Koraidon and Miraidon and your entire game just like freezes for like a second or two and you have no idea why that's happening. Maybe even in battle, like you might be doing an attack or something and everything kind of just freezes for a few seconds, and it's just really weird why that happens, especially when you're exploring and stuff just kind of stutters there for a little bit. Some of like the performance, like with like some of the Pokemon in the background, they're gonna be like running around in 2 FPS in the background while you're getting closer to them. I don't know why they did this, like, or why this is still a problem. I would have thought that the performance would have been fixed because they would have heard like how much of an issue it was in the base game when the games came out last November, because that was definitely one of the big things that everybody was complaining about. Nintendo even put out a tweet about this too, where they said like, you know, we value like the like feedback from our fans a lot, and we're gonna make sure that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet are gonna get their improvements. And I don't know what even happened with this because there was no follow-up. We never got like any big performance patch that fixed any of this. So yeah, that's definitely really the only issue that I have with this DLC, which is definitely be prepared to see some of your game kind of freeze from time to time and getting these FPS drops. But besides that, the Scarlet and Violet DLC Part 1, the Teal Mask, was pretty nice. I did have a decent time with it. If I had to give it a score out of 10, I would say probably like around a 7. It wasn't anything insane to write home about, but it was definitely pretty enjoyable. And I will say, like, if you like Pokemon and you liked Scarlet and Violet and just exploring the open world and everything, you should have a pretty good time. And of course, it is just Part 1 because it is going to be getting a continuation in Part 2, which does look to be kind of the more expansive and more interesting type of DLC. So I feel like that one is definitely going to be much bigger and much grander, and that one's probably going to pop off more. So it'll be more interesting when that one comes out. But even for Part 1 with this, I definitely enjoyed it. And if you divide the $35 into half, I would say that this one for $17, in terms of how big of an area that you actually get to explore all the new Pokemon, it was definitely pretty enjoyable. And so yeah, those are pretty much all of my thoughts about the Teal Mask DLC for Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. If you guys enjoyed the video, definitely be sure to click that like button and also subscribe to the channel as well, as I'm going to be having more Pokemon videos in the future, so definitely be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on that. Comment down below and let me know what you guys think about the Teal Mask DLC. Did you guys finish it already? Did you guys enjoy it? Are you excited for Part 2? What would you guys give it out of 10? Definitely be sure to let me know down below. Go follow me on Twitter at Aero so you can be featured in videos, and also join my Discord server as well. We've got a bunch of people in there who are always talking about Pokemon and Smash Bros and Nintendo, so definitely be sure to join that. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching.